Okay, so welcome to the OpenJS Foundation Bootstrap team meeting for May 13th, 2019. We'll follow the agenda as posted in the issue, which is issue number 173. So I guess to start out with, are there any announcements that people would like to share?
Just a quick announcement and reminder that Collaborator Summit is moments away. And if there's anybody who intends to go and hasn't registered yet, please, please, please do so.
Do you have an idea of the registration so far?
We were at 60 something last Tuesday. I haven't looked yet this week.
How do we actually register for that? In the past, usually I've just shown up and it's worked. So
there's an Eventbrite page, and the full URL is escaping me at the moment.
I'll get it, Jerry.
What now?
I can get it for you. I'll put it in the.
Yeah, and then when you click on that, there is a password. The password is all lowercase collab summit, and that was just to kind of make sure that we were able to prioritize working group contributors and collaborators and stuff, and not just accidentally send the message that this is a general purpose conference. So
yeah.
Okay, any other announcements?
One more announcement, which is we're still looking for an executive director for the OpenJS Foundation. So if you or anybody you know are interested, please take a look at the homepage of the OpenJS website. And there's a link there for how to apply. We have a recruiter screening and working with the candidates, and encourage anybody who's interested to get their applications in soon.
Okay, so any others? Okay, if not, let's move on to the issues that were tagged for the agenda. The first is number 158, which is the new project application process. I'll just open that up. I believe Miles wrote that PR. There's already a few LGTMs. Miles, do you want to let us know what the next step on that one is?
I believe what I need to do is get Mateo's comments in there as outstanding questions and then land it. I don't know if there's anything else to discuss right now, unless anyone has specific questions or thoughts.
No, I thought it was a very good start, and we can, once it lands, people can PR changes as they think they need to. Okay, so if there's no questions or comments on that, then I guess we'll see that likely will land in the next little while. The next issue which was tagged is number 152, which is voting CPC representatives from projects.
Yeah, so last week we celebrated getting all of the nominees and representatives in. They have all been poked again to make sure that they add their availability so that next week we can call our first official meeting on the 20th, as we discussed. And I also sent around an email, and in the email mentioned that I would be proposing that we just accept all of the nominees as voting members for now, so that we can kind of bootstrap and figure out what the voting process should be. In that period of time, though, another issue was raised, I think by Joe and Chris Hiller, regarding the number of potentially too many IBM employees, or do we have any? It's not about IBM. It's about is there a ratio of people from one company we want to avoid, because at the current selection we would have 20 something 25, 26% from one company. And I don't think we have, or at least I'm not sure if we have a rule or.
The governance does say that no more than 25% come from one company. That mirrors what we had in the Node.js governance.
So the if we were to take all of the persons nominated as at large or growth reps, then we would have 26% to Chris's math. So Chris suggested we could add another representative to make it an even 25%. You know, it's actually kind of clever. I like that, but you know, that's me. So I don't know what we want to do about it.
What we've done in the past and what I would suggest would be, we now have too many representatives from one organization. It's up to that organization to figure out which one of their representatives will step down. At least that's how we had done it in the times where we had this same thing happen over on the technical steering committee.
I think that's pretty much what the governance says as well.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. And Nick and Chris and I have been talking about it offline, and you know, we can work that out amongst ourselves if that's I think that makes sense. It's unfortunate because I know everybody's excited about getting involved, but they can still be involved as, you know, non-voting members. So I think it's fine.
Yeah, hopefully we can, like, if the first official meeting is next week, if not then very soon after, we should have the process for people to become regular members so that we can build on that excitement.
Yeah.
Speaking of, do we have an agreed date for next week meeting? The agreed time, sorry.
I don't know that we've called that yet, have we?
No,
We were supposed to. May 1 was the date, the cutoff date for which we were going to start using the spreadsheet data.
I'm not sure it was May. Well, maybe it was. That's when we were trying to get all the people who were identified.
Yeah, we agreed that previously that May 1st was the day we wanted to do the cutoff as well, because of that date of membership. We had discussed that in a few meetings.
Okay.
then today should we, because we didn't last week, look at the sheet and select the best day.
Just a question before we move on to that. Has a decision effectively been made then now to take in everyone who applied to be as an at-large representative as a CPC member?
That's a great question. I don't know that is the case. We typically take like a written proposal through, and there's nothing documenting it on our repo, so I don't know that we can say that is true. I don't know.
Yeah, what would be the next steps? What should we?
Yeah, I think an issue that says this is the proposal. Can you LGTM or object?
And also noting the outstanding point of the representation.
We'll continue in the conversation in issue 152, where it was originally raised and people ended up getting nominated. Voting CPC representatives from projects.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, makes sense. I think you just need the formal call for consensus or objections. And I guess the other question is, yeah, no, I guess we've made consensus fairly open. So as long as there aren't any objections, then whoever wants to say yes, can. Okay, I think the other question was whether we should look at the calendar or the spreadsheet to choose a new time.
Yes, that's 129. And I'll pop the sheet into the chat. So remembering that there are 2 tabs, one for Tuesday and one for Wednesday. It looks like Tuesday on the UT 1600 has the most points.
So that's noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
Okay, it's 6. You said it's Tuesday at 6 UTC, 16 UTC, right?
16 UTC has 89 points.
Yeah.
As the most there. Let me just highlight this bright green here. And then Wednesday.
It's the same.
Yes, the 1600 UTC has the same, or as the highest point. So would you say that was, Tierney? That's 9 a.m. Pacific?
So, yeah, 9 a.m. Pacific. Well, sorry, EST, so Eastern Standard Time, not ET, which I don't believe we're in EST right now. I believe we're in EDT. But yeah, it should be noon Eastern Time, and then 9 a.m. Pacific Time. Yeah.
Okay, so Tuesday has the most points. Do we have any, are there any like hardcore objections to Tuesdays at?
I guess the question would be, do we need to alternate so that, like, even though that has the most points, or does it exclude some people or some group? If not, we can do one day, but otherwise, like, doing 2 is probably makes sense, right?
I mean, it is also worth noting that there's 2 more people who added themselves to that first day.
Who didn't add themselves?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's 2 more rows in that.
Okay, right. So that could. But I think it's more about like
between Tuesday and Wednesday sounds like a good plan.
I agree.
No, I see that I didn't put myself on Wednesday. So how about I just remove myself entirely? Like that. Now there's only one different.
Yeah.
Still the winner.
I'm good alternating. I think that's fine.
Is there a way to see if it's the same kind of people voting on both days, so that we could know if, the same people are saying the same time on 2 different days, then maybe we could just pick one day and not have to remember which day it is each week.
You should be able to click back and forth now, and most of it is still in order.
I mean, the biggest thing I notice is that Michael Dawson's Wednesdays are better than his Tuesdays, and I value having Michael Dawson. So,
yeah, I wouldn't make it about me, but if there's several people who can't,
yeah,
like, it's unfortunate. I see like Manil is one for both of them, right? That's where it's like, is there?
I think that might have just more to, because he's way out.
Specific. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the kind of thing. If there's a bunch of people where it's like the time zone doesn't work, because it's interesting that the 2 days on the same one come out so close.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if if it makes sense to do one day and alternate the time like we've been doing to you know, that may not be easily revealed in this kind of a spreadsheet.
So I'm noticing that on Wednesday, just a couple hours later at UTC 1900, we still have pretty good number of points, but that seems to be kinder to our West Coastlands.
Yeah, like let's just look at the 16 and 19. Is there any one where people have like nobody
Or
can
even-
have either?
Even 1800 on, but that's bad for Mateo.
Yeah, those are really bad, those are bad hours for me. So if you go with those options, those are fine. But I will kindly ask, like I won't be able, it's more or less, it's very unlikely that I will be able to join. So, but it's fine as long as it's alternated. So if we go on Wednesdays, alternating between 16 UTC and maybe 19 UTC, then I am good. And I will join like half of the meeting likely, but that's okay.
Yeah, I feel like you know, trying to optimize for Pacific also unoptimizes for Europe or you know, Asia. So we should probably try to go with one that's more friendly for those who are in, because I mean, we also have the time zones here, which is useful. It would be nice if we could optimize for one that's friendlier to US Pacific or Pacific time, I guess. That also falls in Mexico, I think, or South America. But also, you know, optimizing one for Europe because we have contributors from Europe and APAC. Because we have contributors from around the world, and I think that's a fair thing to do, especially for alternating days. So like basically one meeting. Well, is this meeting going to be weekly or bi-weekly?
Yeah, I was wondering that too.
This is, I think it's going to be weekly for at the beginning at least.
Yeah.
And then I would hope to move to be weekly as soon as we run out of things and we can start canceling them.
Yeah.
Like.
Or like what we did in the TSC is like it's weekly, but we cancel if there's nothing on the agenda.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's also okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, in that case, I think it's probably worth doing it one that works for EMEA and APAC and one that works for Pacific time. And I think we might kind of be aiming toward that. But I don't know, Mateo, does the 16, like what time is it for you? 1600 UTC.
1600 is 6 p.m. It's perfect.
Okay. Yeah.
It's 6 p.m. right now. It will be 5 p.m. in the winter. It's perfect. Like, it's one of the best time for me. So
it really does split the difference between West and Europe.
Yeah. So should we just do that one? And then should we do alternating days, or should we just pick a day for now? And you know, this is also something we can kind of revisit as we get the.
For me, if you want to do it, you know, for me, very weirdly, 20 instead of 6, 18 or 19, 20 is actually really better. Because it's moved out of dinner time completely.
Yeah, and that's only a 2-point difference. I think that should be okay.
Like in general, it's to some extent it's the family time that's problematic. So at least that's my take. Somebody messed there was a mistake done on the micro row on Wednesdays.
Oh, did I just I might have just done that. Sorry. Can I undo that? I don't think so.
I don't know what.
Here, I can do it. But yeah.
So
I mean, that makes sense because that also aims better for Pacific. And if we can get some, I don't know what your role there was, Michael.
Yeah.
If that
It's
works,
probably fine.
oh wow, that just raised it a lot. So
Well, that must have been, yeah, I don't know if I was that, but
sorry. Whatever you
yeah,
do
whatever
or-
it was, I'd have to go look, but
No, there is a mistake. Sorry, in the formula now. Here we go. Yay. Yes.
So 20 on Wednesdays, I think would be hard for me for the next, 6 weeks.
Okay.
But beyond that, I should be more open. But on Tuesday, it's fine. But I have a thing on Wednesdays.
Yeah, for me Tuesdays or Wednesdays are more or less identical, so I don't care.
Should we choose Tuesday then and just alternate between 16 and 20? I see Chris Borchers is on an attendee as well. If somebody could promote him.
Yeah, that makes sense to me just because it hits specific and allows accessibility there because we have a disproportionately large population coming from there. But then 12 also allows us to do the rest of the world.
switching between which times on Tuesday?
16 and 20, I think was
Yeah,
what
20, I think neither of those work very well for me.
neither.
Yeah, Wednesday, that would be fine. Or it is easier having it on the same day, I've got to say.
Yeah, I mean, I
Just
can
in
just
terms of remembering.
I can try to make the 20 work. I might only be able to attend half the meeting.
But 16 works for you?
Yeah.
So like Wednesdays, 16 and 20, does that cover most people? I'm just looking to see if this Manila is still going to be challenged. And
20 is a bit late for me. It's 11 p.m., but I'm mostly fine with that. Another entire issue to take into account after this is to pick a reference time zone for when this is based on.
Like 19 might be a bit better because like that, if you look at 16 and 19 on Wednesdays, then I guess Manila is the only person that one of those two isn't good for. Whereas 20 ends up not being good for both times, I think, for a few people.
Okay, do we want to try 16 and 19 for now? I mean, sorry, 16 and what did you say?
I think it was 16 and 19. Yeah, looked. Like Emily has at least is at 19 is good. And so is, I'm just looking at the other people who can't make the 16 one. That's not so good for Tracy. So hard.
Yeah. Well, we could take this, into a separate meeting and try to flesh this out further. I don't know if we want to keep going over it.
I guess the question is if we want to change the meeting for next week. If
Yeah.
we want to change the meeting for next week, we should likely just make a decision. If we're not going to change it till after the summit, then I don't think it matters.
Yeah, maybe we should just keep going for now and hash it out at the summit.
Any objections to that?
Is that going to cause any issues for anybody? Just to double check. I have been quiet on this because I'm very flexible. I will be there, but just, okay.
I'm going to miss next week anyway, so.
Okay, well, let's all kind of consider those other dates and maybe make sure, double check that there's nothing ruinous about them for our schedules and kind of go from there.
Sounds good.
Right.
Okay, so the next issue is create process for new projects joining the foundation, number 130. So I think at least one of the earlier ones was related to this. Miles?
Yeah, we can skip this agenda item. It's a duplicate of the other one that we just landed.
Okay. I was going to say dupe of 158, right? Okay, and then the last issue on the agenda is steps to bootstrap the CPC and the new foundation, which is number 115. So I think now we've got a board that we should use to go through that, right?
Yeah, project board.
So let's just take a quick look. So create team for CPC voting reps. Sounds like we've got a good start on that. Draft initial process for electing voting members from the non-impact projects. I think that still needs to be completed, although it sounds like we've got a proposal that would mean we don't need to finish that.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably worth a little bit of discussion to say, do we have agreement that that Nick and I could put into a PR on what we like on a starting point? I think the two main things, as I remember it, is there were kind of like two different possible voting systems. One which was you vote, everybody votes for all candidates and it's ranked. And I think the other one was you vote for all candidates, but it's unranked.
I think that if we're going to go ahead and take all of the members in, as we've suggested, modulo having too many members from one company, perhaps this can be moved as a post Bootstrap to the other board that we have, as something to do post Bootstrap, and just have a proposal to make that one of the action items to get done.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was just thinking we've made some progress. It would be, if we were pretty much at a consensus, we should just capture that. Like, was there strong, I'm just getting that, like, is there a strong feeling that we should go one way or the other way, or is it that, or can we just write up one of them and?
I don't know that I had a really strong preference either way. So
Could you define one way or the other way? Sorry.
Sorry, yeah. One was like, I think one of them used, everybody votes for all candidates, but they're ranked. And in the other case, you voted for you could vote for all the candidates that you wanted to vote for, but they're unranked.
Based on my experience in helping to run some of the Hugo, mostly literary science fiction awards, the way that one runs is that the first stage is completely open and that one is unranked, the candidates. But then the second stage, where the finalists voted on, that is ranked, because the pool of candidates from which people are voting from is so much smaller. And it works well for that. I would therefore myself suggest using a ranked voting system for this one. But my feelings on this one are not very strong.
I mean, that definitely makes sense to me, is that we have a relatively small, I guess it could be increasing over time as more projects join, or if more projects get promoted to impact, that could change and we can revisit it at that point. But I'm relatively comfortable with it being ranked for now, if that makes sense to everyone else.
I think that we're going to want to document this, and I think since we've just bootstrapped the CPC, I think, Michael, what might make the most sense is just documenting in the issue, everything that we've discussed up until now, and then turn it into a proposal post Bootstrap.
Okay, I mean, I think the stuff that the doc stuff is in there. It just seems like the next step is to make a proposal. And agreed, we don't have to wait. Just sometimes harder to come back to it later. So if we don't want to push on it, I'm fine with that. But I'd also be fine with just writing up something. But if there's going to be a big discussion back and forth between the two, then maybe it's worth waiting, right? I think they'll both end up being relatively similar. You know, you're sort of implicitly ranking if you vote for 2 or 3 versus everybody, but so I guess you know, unless it sounds like there's some suggestion we should just wait. So unless somebody feels strongly the other way, maybe we'll just do that. Okay. So let's move that from to, so did you say there's a different board or a different column now? Because at one
There's
point,
a second board, which is
okay.
project 3. That's the post Bootstrap housekeeping.
Okay. How do you move from one board to the other?
I don't know that you easily can. You may need to just create a new. I can just copy paste it.
Okay. Okay, so moving on to the next one, infrastructure mailing lists. I think, Brian, you were working on that. Is Brian still on? Yeah, Brian's still on. I think you're on mute if you're talking.
Yep. Yep, I was very much on mute. So, but I was just saying, hey, I'm saying the same thing that I said last time. So with the mailing lists, again, any that need to be set up, please let me know. You know, I can set up any lists that we need and assign moderatorship to anybody who needs it, whether it be a project or whether it be for functioning within the foundation or for subgroups of the CPC or anything like that. Just drop me a line or open an issue and I will get those things open.
Right, but I guess this is open because we had a number we needed to get set up. If those are all set up, we should move it to done, I think.
I think we can move that to done.
Okay, so
yeah.
Sounds good. And then get basically ad hoc from then on. So let's actually, so that's all the things that were in progress. Let's take a quick look just at the, I want to go back to the checklist to say at least they want to get rid of that checklist, but make sure. So work with projects to identify initial CPC representatives. I think that's done. Define initial process for handling reports to openjsf.org. I think there was a draft for that. I guess we don't have Manil today, though, to talk to it. And then we had add entry point for projects wanting to join on README and review project progression. So it sounds, sorry, go ahead. I think, Jory, you were looking at that one. It says from the notes anyway.
Which one?
It is add entry point for projects wanting to join on README and review project progression.
Oh, I am not sure. I let my brain wander to this follow-up question that I had for Brian about mailing lists really quick, so I need to go jump back. That's number.
There's no issue, so
oh, it's just in the board. Okay.
It's just in the board. I'm copying it over to the. Sorry, it's in that checklist, not in the board itself.
I see.
It over to the board itself. Can I assign things in the board without an issue? I don't know. I don't see a way to do that.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Sorry. What I wanted to do was take a pass at updating the README to to include some narrative for a project that was looking at our README to figure out how they wanted to engage and whether they wanted to join. I haven't had a chance to do that. I'm sorry.
Okay, so I'm just copying that to the board. The next one was draft the initial process for electing the voting members for the non-NPOC projects. We moved that on the board, so I just moved it here down to the post Bootstrap, and probably we can delete this list at some point, but ask projects to start updating references to docs in the admin repo. So I'm going to move that to the board too. I think the one, what happened there? On that one, I think the first thing to do is we needed to move like the the code of conduct over to the admin repo, right? I don't think I've seen that. So move COC over to the admin repo. So I'll do that as a first step.
Michael, I don't think we're doing an admin repo, right? We're just having it in the Bootstrap repo.
Ah, okay. So we changed, we had talked about that, but that must have changed since the last meeting I was at.
Yeah, in the last meeting, we discussed about the fact that since there's only one top level group, we should just kind of, I think the plan was that we're going to rename Bootstrap to CPC.
Okay.
And then just start collecting all of those artifacts inside of the Bootstrap repo.
Sounds good. So in that case, if the code of conduct is there, are we ready to start asking projects, ask like, say, for example, Node to update their references to the code of conduct to point to that one?
Yeah, I guess the only thing I would say is this does seem like a post-Bootstrap concern to me.
Yeah, in terms of timing, we can do it now or do it later. It may make sense in terms of like if the rename is going to potentially have any problems with you make a link that points to the Bootstrap repo and then it's CPC repo, that wouldn't, and that causes a grief, that wouldn't be good. So should we move that one to the post?
Yes, I do think so.
Anybody else? Everybody else agree?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's just.
And then this other note that you have about add entry point for projects wanting to join on README and review project progression. Do you think those can be post Bootstrap as well? Like these things can happen in parallel, but I think the big difference would be once this board is done, then the cross-project council is considered effective.
Yeah, I don't think there is a reason to block making the CPC effective. It's something we want to do, but not. And I'm not sure even like anything that's remaining on the bootstrapping document define initial process for handling reports or the new Zoom YouTube. Do those need to? I don't think those need to really block the. If that's the criteria, right?
Okay, so I will add. I can add a note about that. So, what were those action items one more time, Michael?
I've moved some of them already to the new board. Oh, sorry, but yeah, the ones that were here, like the ones that I still see is like new Zoom YouTube and document define initial process for handling reports to openjsf.org. That one, I mean, I think both of them are I don't think are blockers. It's a good question. Yeah. Like, is there anything left that is considered a blocker, right?
So I think the only thing to me that would then be a blocker would be IBM deciding on the candidates that are going to be on the voting members.
Right.
And then renaming the repo.
I'll try to get that sorted ASAP too. There's been discussion, so we'll figure that out.
Okay. I think by looking at the board then, and Michael, that issue that you have, I think we might be done aside from yeah, aside from that last bit.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to me. Like we've got the people as well. I think we need, actually, we were saying we need to have formal consensus on 152, right? So like, I think there's the two parts. IBM needs to say, okay, given that this is agreed, who will be the people, and two, we just need the in that 152. Like, do we have consensus on that proposal to, just allow to let everybody in who put their name forward, and if there's no objections, then that just carries, right? That makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
Yep.
Okay. So that is, I'm just going to go back to our agenda. That's the end of the agenda. So I don't know if anybody else has any other things that they want to add on to the agenda or discuss before we call it a meeting.
I had some questions for just to clarify for myself what the purpose of the different emails that we have for Brian. And so I don't know if this is something everybody needs to hear, but I wanted to send around an update about the different lists that people can subscribe to and what their purposes were. So we currently have main, announce, COC escalation, projects, reimbursement, and report. And I think what I need help with is understanding what the difference is between main, announce, and projects.
I can help with that. I can also document that in the minutes too. But just at a very high level, the way that groups.io works is that you have one overarching umbrella group that you join, and that's called main. And then once you're a member of that, then you subscribe to these sub lists. And essentially what this does is it makes it easier if you want to update if you want to do a global unsubscribe or something else, you do it from one place. And then after that, you basically join the things that you join the things you want to join. So main is, it's the primary list for the project, but it shouldn't really be used for anything. It's moderated. I don't want any emails to go out on this one. Mainly because if somebody unsubscribes from it because they think it's not relevant to them, it'll unsubscribe them from everything. So from that perspective, then for project announcements, when we do want to make an announcement, for example, launch of the certification program, or maybe, a quarterly or monthly update or something like that, if the CPC decided to do that, that could go out unannounced because that's billed as being an announcement list. It's essentially for project news. The projects alias, that one's unmoderated. People who are, working in the projects or the maintainers of the projects are the ones who should join that one. And that's meant to be a discussion list, essentially a high level project discussion list. If there's a project that would like to have a list that's very specific to what they're doing, then I am happy to set up a separate list that is very, just taking an example, Appium at lists.openjsf.org or something like that. I'm happy to set those up as well. And that kind of keeps the project specific discussion off on a separate list. So I'll document this all in the minutes, but does that help, Jory?
That does. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I think minutes is good, but I think what we need is actually a PR for a document somewhere in the repo that says, here's the mailing list and exactly what you just described.
Sure.
Thanks.
So while we're at it, is there anything else that we should define like this in the document? So mailing lists.
Is there any other infrastructure? Like, I think in that document, like the mailing list, how do you request a new mailing list? Basically anything that somebody would need to know to use them or to request a new one or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And are there any other, I mean, I think once we get the YouTubes and the the YouTube, the Zoom, having that a doc that covers that as well would be good.
Okay.
Like, what are the steps to getting yourself added to the list and being able to run meetings, that kind of stuff. Okay, any other things before we close for today?
Yeah, who do I talk to about making sure that my project message format is included in the list at the bottom of the openjs.org site, because it's currently missing from...
It was kind of included as Jed, and so we need to update, because there were, like, when Alex brought Jed over, that was sort of all...
Jed and message format are entirely different.
I know that, but this has been many, many moons ago that this happened, and it never got updated. So I do apologize, but I was actually recently made aware of this a couple months ago. So I do apologize. But
so can I trust that someone's going to take care of it, or is there somewhere that I can put a pull request in?
Yes,
I am actually doing that right now.
Cool.
As we speak. My apologies.
No problem. Thank you.
And I'll ask the same question I did before. Is this something that people will need to ask regularly? Like, you know, if you need something updated like that, documenting that somewhere to say, how do you do it? Or is it something that normally happens as part of the onboarding and we won't?
It's something that should really be happening as part of the onboarding. Because really, I don't think that these ought to change that often. And when they do, I think we should have some warning for it, right?
Right.
I mean, projects would be unlikely to come straight out of the blue. Okay. It's updated in just a second. It's even in alphabetical order. All right. Yes, I will be happy to get that documented as well. I'm working on the finishing touches here on a projects page, a much more specific projects page. And as part of that, once we have that built out on the website, then we can start putting things in like, I have a project I'd like to join. Where do I go? Who do I talk to? And point that off to the appropriate place and the appropriate groups who would handle that. In some cases, I assume that when a project comes on board, it will come in through a member of the CPC or be raised through the project, but there may also be people who come in through the website, and we want to make sure that they get directed to the proper people.
Sounds good. Okay, I do see one other comment from Miles that we should potentially discuss 172.
Yeah, that's the one specifically about the travel fund. I think it touches on the current travel fund, where it should be allocated to, and then also kind of, and I added this as a to-do for the future for post-Bootstrap about how we want to set up travel fund overall. I know that there was some conversation about like the current travel fund and how broadly it should be used. I don't know if anyone else from the Node project is more up to date on where we're at on that, but I do believe that the intention moving forward was that, at least for this collaborator summit right now, that we wanted to make it the travel fund available to a broader group of people. But I don't know where we are on that and, what the process is. We're very close to Berlin. So it makes sense for us to at least have, if we need to make an ask to the TSC or make an ask to the board, we should know that right now and get the ball moving on that.
Miles, that has been approved in admin. So essentially, attendees from JSF, ex-JSF project can ask for the Node.js travel fund.
Yeah, so I think that this may be something that we just need to send a quick email, Miles, to I would assume, and Brian might be able to help on this, but the budget subcommittee for the board, Like I don't know whether this requires like a board vote. I doubt it, but
We actually did discuss this a few meetings ago. You know, the question that came up in front of the board was, what's the intent in providing this budget? And the general position of the board was, well, you know, our goal is to leave this up to the project. You know, essentially, this is a decision we're delegating as funding. This is decisions that the CPC will make, but essentially use it responsibly. So, you know, I think that was the authorization that I'd be looking for. That if the decision is to use this for all of the projects, which it sounds like it is, and to allocate it responsibly, which again, it sounds like it is, the board has already weighed in on that.
great. Yeah, as long as it's not in the charter. I don't think we have it in the charter itself, but
No.
Yeah.
Nope.
Right. So just for reference, Matteo, what was the issue number where that was approved?
Let me get it for you.
Okay, I'll just, because yeah, as I remember, there was an issue that said, hey, let's make an exception for this collaborator summit. I
Yeah.
think there's a larger discussion for longer term, whether, you know, these travel funds are still, you know, project based, or whether it makes sense to be, you know, cross project based or whatever. I could see, you know.
Yeah, I passed the
different
link in
views.
the chat. For me, the key part there is maybe to try to incorporate the funds for the travel summit, for the collaborator summit, which is something that I think we should try to get as a single activity. Okay. I don't think that should be project specific, or if that should be project specific, that's a decision that we can revert back to after the experiment in Berlin. So if the experiment in Berlin is we decide that we will do a Node.js collaborator summit only next time, then it's the thing. Otherwise, I think that's better. Personally, I think that's better to have a OpenJS collaborator summit, because I think it might be more valuable for the overall community. And that's my thinking. But if this is different, if we decide something different, we can always decide something different. And
I'm not sure they're tied together, right? Like, I think, you know, even if you had a collaborator summit, which was, you know, OpenJS collaborator summit, the project, you know, a particular project approving who goes or who doesn't go to that summit may still make sense to be project based.
yes, and so in theory, yes. In practice, I see it as highly problematic, because you know, see, somebody is proposing for a session, but then it's not getting approved, then those things are, I don't know, it can get
Yeah.
Perhaps this should be a subcommittee of the CBC, you know, taking on this context.
Yeah, I think it's, yeah, I don't think we're going to come to the conclusion now, but I do think it requires like input from the Node.js project to say, well, are you happy to have the CPC do the reviews, or is it that, you know?
No, so it is my
project should be doing the reviews, right?
So for me, there is a significant difference from travel for the collaborator summit and other generic travel. Essentially, because there is one thing is going to promote Node or promote whatever project at a conference, and another thing is to promote is to go and meet all together at some known location. Okay, so for me, those two things are slightly different in terms of type of use of the responsible use of the travel fund. Okay, and one is more marketing related, while the other one is more to foster collaboration. So that being said, I'm okay with being project allocated, but that means that that will become complicated for a lot of the projects that are not currently in the management position to do so.
Yeah, I don't know what the right answer is for all the projects, like, but I think we just need to carefully carefully ask the projects and have the discussion before we assume it's, you know, it's global or non-global.
No, totally. No, I totally agree on the ask.
And I could even see that, like, you know, I agree that like some of the smaller projects might just say, hey, we want to defer this to the CPC, no problem. Other projects might say, well, no, we prefer to be able to do the approvals. And, you know, that could actually, both of those could make sense, right?
Yeah, totally. No, I says
Yeah.
for me, the thing makes sense. The overall problem comes to the organization of the Collaborator Summit. So essentially, at some point, we will have, if we want to keep the Collaborator Summit as an OpenJS thing, then the organization will need to be transferred from the Node.js org to the OpenJS organization under the CPC. And this means also that, you know, certain things, it becomes a little bit weird where, you know, oh, there is a shared activity, but then each project has some travel fund allocated and they cannot attend, or they don't have enough money, whatever. I don't know. It's for me, it's not, it doesn't look great, but that's my personal, it seems an overcomplication of things, but that's my.
But it seems like for the short term, the answer is, you know, everybody's agreed that yes, for this time, we'll use the existing fund. So there's no urgency. We can take the time to sort of work through the.
Unfortunately, I have to drop, Michael. I have a call starting sharp on some security stuff on Node.
Yep, me too.
Yeah, so bye-bye.
Okay, so I'm going to drop off as well. Is there anything else that other people want to stick around to discuss, or should we close the call? No, okay, we'll call that for today. Thanks to everybody who attended, and I won't be here for next week, but I guess we agreed it would be the regular time, and I'll talk to everybody later.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers, everyone.